Greetings. My name's Guy Dauncey, and this is the show Change the World, where I like to bring on guests who are, guess it, changing the world. And today my guest is Kiki Wood from Stand.earth. So Kiki, you are the senior oil and gas campaigner at Stand.earth.
Yes, I am.
And you got a background in all sorts of social justice things before that, but people need to explain, what is Stand.earth?
Yeah, Stand.earth is a people-powered organization that is working to advance climate justice and sort of decarbonize our world through political campaigning, social campaigning, and corporate campaigning.
So to help us tackle this enormous catastrophe looming thing called the climate crisis.
Absolutely.
Right. In all its different ways. And you're the oil and gas campaigner. Well, isn't that 80% of the cause of the climate crisis? You've got a little work cut out here, right?
It absolutely is 80% of the climate crisis.
So what is a typical day? What's on your desk for a typical day?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of my work right now is focused on BC, so British Columbia, on LNG and fracking. And so it means monitoring government releases and news. It means coordinating with other...
Okay, I'm going to slow you up immediately. Okay. You said very quickly LNG and fracking.
Yeah.
For our viewers, what is LNG?
LNG is liquefied natural gas or liquefied fracked gas.
Yes, so it's gas. The same stuff that we use on our cookers and stuff like that. It's regular gas, but it's liquefied.
Yes, exactly.
And why is it liquefied?
Yeah, so this is gas that is extracted in British Columbia primarily through fracking, that is then cooled to a very, very low temperature in order to liquefy it for transportation.
Like something like minus 160? I mean, something bizarrely cold,
really, really low.
And it turns it from a gas into a liquid,
It does, yes.
A physicist could explain this, but I can't, right?
Yes, exactly, and which makes it possible for transportation. A lot of the gas infrastructure for transportation right now is through pipelines. Liquefying it makes it possible to transport it by ship.
Okay, so most people probably assume that gas comes out the ground, but what is fracking?
Yeah, so fracking is an extremely water-intensive process where companies actually drill down, sometimes now about 2 kilometers underground. It's quite deep.
That's
and
close
then
to Australia,
from there
right?
they go, horizontal along that too. They encase that in concrete, and then they flush a mixture of sand and silica and other chemicals down into that creates pressure and basically fractures open these deposits, these underground deposits of gas, which they then capture as it comes back up.
Right. And what happens to all those chemicals that are released in the kind of mini explosion thing that's going on down there? Do they get into the water supply?
It is possible that they can get into the water supply. Definitely what we're seeing right now in heavily industrialized areas is a huge increase in different health concerns that suggest that there could be water contamination and also air and land contamination from a lot of the chemicals that are used in fracking operations.
So am I right that a whole bunch of places around the world have banned fracking because of these very concerns?
Yeah, absolutely. Countries around the world have banned fracking for a number of different reasons. Some U.S. states have as well. For both the health impacts, for the water impacts, for the climate impacts. Like, there's nothing good about fracking.
Right. But in BC, up in the northeast, which is the other side of the Rockies, right?
Yeah.
It's full-on business, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's at the foothills, and it's an extreme. I don't think people in British Columbia are really aware of how large the fracking industry is in BC. I think we have this vision of British Columbia as this pristine, untouched wilderness.
Well, like how one person in 100 has been up to Dawson Creek in the northeast, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people think of northern BC and they think like Whistler.
Yeah.
Like there's 20 more hours to go before you hit the Yukon border. And this is specifically in the northeast corner of British Columbia, and underneath all that land is something called the Montney Shale Formation, which is a huge deposit of gas that spans British Columbia and Alberta. It is Canada's largest carbon bomb, and it's actually the 6th largest carbon bomb in the world.
So we're talking the other side of the Rockies, in that northeast corner of British Columbia, that is adjacent to Alberta.
Yes,
where
exactly.
There's a massive amount of oil and gas and stuff underground, right?
Yep.
And the fracking comes up, and I gather that people are worried about the health impacts up in the Dawson Creek area.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been some studies in that area over the last couple of years, and they've started to find some really concerning outcomes. There was a researcher from, I believe, Concordia University who found an increase in rare cancers in glioblastoma, which is a type of rare brain cancer.
No one wants a rare brain cancer.
No one wants a rare brain. Yeah. And more recently, there's been an ongoing multi-year study conducted about the health impacts of pregnant women living in this extremely industrialized area, and they've found an increase in birth defects that they're finding is directly a result of living in a heavily industrialized area.
And the only industry is fracking. There's nothing.
Fracking is the primary industry there right now. That industry, that area has gone through several like extractive boom and bust type economies, but logging and fracking are the two largest industries at that time right now that are actively competing with the more traditional industries like farming and agriculture.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've heard that some of the health care providers, the doctors in Dawson Creek, are leaving because they say it's not safe to raise their children there.
I have definitely heard those stories as well. Folks who move up there because there's work there and then are actually afraid to raise their family there because you don't really know what's in the air, you don't know what's in the water, and there's no ongoing testing or monitoring. Like the industry is not required to do baseline testing before they frack in certain areas, nor are they required to do ongoing monitoring for disposal well sites, because that's one of the things that also isn't talked about that much is like all this extra stuff that comes up that isn't the usable gas, this extra water that is contaminated. This is water that's coming directly out of streams and rivers, is being permanently destroyed and contaminated.
Does it sit in great long big pools, or what?
It gets left in large pools or sometimes in dugouts for a while, and then it gets disposed of in old wells.
Back into the groundwater.
Back into the ground. And they say that there's a casing around that protects it from getting into the groundwater, but it doesn't last forever. We actually don't know how long that lasts.
So we've got the fracking for the gas happening in the northeast.
Yeah.
And then a pipeline out to places like Kitimat and the northwest. And then a big thing that our Premier and our Prime Minister are promoting, LNG exports.
Yeah.
Are they not connecting? Why are we so big on exporting this dangerous fossil fuel?
Yeah, I think the sort of all-in approach on gas from this government has been quite baffling, to be honest. I think that it's no surprise that BC has had a more extractive sort of economic engine in our history, but I think that this one is a bit of like a sort of missed opportunity. We actually don't need the gas that we're extracting for like domestic use, right? Like less than 12% of the gas that we extract in British Columbia is actually needed in people's homes. A lot of this is just to sell to other countries to make money for the province. Which is kind of disappointing because we actually know from the budget last year that it's not actually contributing that much to our economy. Like we will make less royalty revenue off of oil and gas in British Columbia than we'll make off the Lotto Commission.
So why do we see the buses with the adverts that says our LNG is the cleanest in the world, or it'll reduce all that kind of stuff, making it's clean and green and wonderful. You'd take it home to bed with you, right?
Yeah, because the people who are actually making money off this, which is not the people of British Columbia, are oil and gas giants like Shell, right? They're oil and gas companies. They're the ones who really want us to extract the gas and ship it and liquefy it and sell it because they make money at every step of that way, right? Shell owns huge interests in the Montney Formation where they're fracking, and then they own huge interests in the LNG facility where it's being liquefied and exported. So they make tons of money when we get caught in that trap. Yeah, we don't. But we bear the cost.
On what basis are they claiming that it's green LNG?
Yeah, they have this idea that because of the environmental regulations that do exist in the province and the possibility to use specific infrastructure like e-drives, that our gas can be lower emissions than other countries.
You're talking jargon here.
Yeah.
What's an e-drive? I know an e-drive. I drive one. It's a Hyundai.
Yeah,
What's
of
an
course.
e-drive?
So when you are trying to transition the gas from a gas to a liquid, it requires huge amounts of energy to actually compress, cool, liquefy that gas. That is traditionally done also using gas. Right? So it's a gas engine that actually compresses this. There are places that use electric drives. So they use grid energy to use electricity to compress that gas, which overall makes it lower emissions.
And BC's electricity is all hydro and wind, so it's renewable.
Primarily, yes. The interesting thing is that we're not actually using those drives. We use higher efficiency engines to do that, which marginally lowers the emissions intensity of these altogether. But the important thing to know about gas is that it's mostly methane. It's a very small molecule. It leaks at every step in the process. It leaks when you're fracking and extracting it. It leaks when you're shipping it through a pipeline.
If you turn your cooker on,
It's leaking directly into your home.
And before you put the match to it, or
Yeah.
that's pure methane coming out into the kitchen.
It's leaking directly into your home.
So gas
it's leaking into
is
our atmosphere.
methane. They're the same thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they claim that our emissions for Canada to extract that gas, that will actually be at a lower emissions intensity than other places in the world. And I think, to me, that's just a bit of a red herring. Like, we, by extracting the gas and making it available for the global economy, we are actually stalling the global economy and the global energy system moving on to truly renewable sources like solar and wind.
Yeah.
And so whether it is lower emissions is actually, I think, kind of missing the point intentionally.
But isn't there another point? If a company, say Shell, normally burn their own gas to cool it down, they've got, say, 10% less gas to ship.
Yeah.
If they're using electricity to cool it down, that 10% is now available to ship.
Yeah.
So doesn't that mean there's zero difference globally?
I mean, I think that you could split hairs on the difference globally. I think one of the things that does happen is that they use that talking point around it being lower emissions to actually bully governments into paying for their higher efficiency engines. And so they've been playing this game. We have LNG Canada phase 1 right now. They're proposing an additional phase. And they're sort of holding that threat of this extra phase over the BC and federal government by saying, like, well, we could go ahead with this phase and we could use the gas engines that we normally use, but that would represent this amount of emissions for you. Or you could pay for that. You could give us another $6 billion in subsidy, which is what they got for phase 1.
$6
billion.
So subsidy. So we're talking a free market, private enterprise economy here. Where one particular part of the economy, like your local grocer down the street, needs a $6 billion subsidy to make it work?
It's amazing that, like, this
of taxpayers' money.
Yeah, of taxpayer money. Yeah, it's amazing that this thing that's supposed to be the economic driver for our province, like, actually cannot afford to run on its own.
But we have to pay the businesses.
We have to pay the businesses
to enable them to
operate
make their
here
profits.
to then pay people, when it's like, shouldn't we just cut out the middleman and actually have, like, true innovation from BC, for, like, made in BC companies, right, that are really, like, creating jobs that don't choose between, you know, the climate crisis and putting food on the table.
I'm going to have to spill the beans here to the viewers, because I'm making it seem like I'm the innocent interviewer. I've done my homework on all this stuff.
Absolutely.
And I was doing, because I'm, as you may know, very involved in the climate scene. And I wanted to know the actual emissions caused by liquefied natural gas, and when the methane escapes, the methane is trapping 80 times more heat over a 20-year period than carbon dioxide. And it's escaping in the fracking, it's escaping in the pipelines, it's escaping in the And when the actual liquefaction process is, the reduction in emissions is only 7%.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's burnt. That's when the bulk of the emissions, half the emissions, comes out in the burning of the thing.
Yeah.
And they're kind of pretending, making us believe that the only emissions that matter are in this E-drive liquefaction process. It doesn't add up.
Absolutely. And I think the argument that it's, you know, less emissions intensive is really, like, we should be not exporting this gas at all. We should not be extracting it. We should not be exporting it. And that would actually be the favor. Like, if we actually care about emissions, then we should be trying to reduce them, not just find efficiencies.
So Bill McKibben, who's a long-time climate activist, who's now written a new book called Here Comes the Sun about solar energy. He had a wonderful little metaphor. He said, if you have a ship full of natural gas, liquefied natural gas, it'll produce 50 megawatt of power equivalent. If that same ship is full of solar panels, it'll produce 143 times more electricity, because they last for 25 years. So from that perspective, it is a really inefficient way to make electricity in Indonesia or Tokyo, to take gas from northeast BC, ship it over BC, pipe it up, compared to putting a solar panel directly where you are. This is dumb, because the solar is so cheap these days.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And I think that one of the reasons that folks, you know, prefer gas as an industry to some of those others is that we have cracked the code a little bit on how to export them, right? How to transport this, how to sell it to more markets. And to me, that doesn't mean that we should do it. It means that we actually have, like, a huge opportunity to crack that code when it comes to, like, electricity storage and generation. Right? That if the thing that we're interested in doing is making different types of electricity or energy available available to a global market, there's lots of work for us to do, I think, in battery storage and in a number of other areas that fit that bill that actually are not emissions intensive whatsoever.
Right. So is the truth of it the only piece that's driving the government is the royalties they're going to get from this? Just the money?
I hope not, because they're not making that much money off of it.
Because the full-time jobs, once it's built, there's construction jobs, obviously.
There's a huge amount of construction jobs, and I think that's one of the things that's also not talked about very much, is that a huge number of the jobs related to LNG are actually in the construction phase.
Yes.
But we need to be building all types of things, right? We need to be building like more efficient and better housing. Yeah, we need to be building like mass transit, right? Like there's so many things that we do need to be building. And what is the opportunity cost? Like when we don't have a workforce available for those things because we have them sequestered.
And there's a shortage of trades labor in some of this stuff.
Absolutely, there is, yeah.
Switching gears a little bit, talk about the electricity needed if all of the however many projects want to electrify their operations.
Yeah.
Does BC Hydro have enough electricity to do that when we also need it for electric cars and for heat pumps and electricity in our factories and all that sort of stuff?
They do not have enough electricity for that. They have tried to find this loophole around LNG exports and emissions reductions by saying it's okay because we're going to electrically power all of the LNG export terminals.
Right.
And they have nowhere near the amount of power that they would need to do that. They've also said we're going to electrify the fracking industry, which is totally wild because some of these wells only last 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
You want to build a transmission line to a random well pad in the middle of nowhere for 2 years
and who
and
pays
then abandon it?
And they probably ask
we
the
pay for
taxpayer
it.
to pay
Of course we pay for it. And so absolutely we would need probably the equivalent of, I've seen anywhere from 5 to 8 Site C dams.
My goodness. Well, Site C is a huge, big thing, right?
Huge, yeah. Just for the LNG export terminals that we already have, and that's not including, electrifying new homes or transit or any of these things.
Well, as an electric car driver, I know that everyone's going to end up driving an electric car sooner or later because they're just so much better. Take my word for it. And they offer a side. The cost for me to drive from Ladysmith to Victoria and back for these interviews is $2 in electricity.
Yeah.
It's I can go 1,000 kilometers for $10.
Yeah.
People are going to do this, but we need the electricity for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we switched our house from gas to heat pumps, so we need the electricity for that.
Yeah.
Is it right that all the electricity gets converted to exporting stuff for big foreign corporations?
Absolutely not, no. And I don't think that industries like LNG, which are extremely polluting, should get preferential access to that energy. I don't think they should get preferential rates for that energy, which is another type of subsidy which the government provides to them, is preferential electricity rates for industry, which you and I don't get.
So you and I we're paying what, 12 cents a kilowatt hour?
Sure, yeah.
Industry, I believe, is paying 5, but I think they're paying about 8 cents, aren't they, for that? But all the new electricity that BC Hydro has to pay is in the range of 10, 12 cents, I'm guessing?
Yeah. And if the idea of 5 to 8 new Site Cs isn't sort of chilling enough, they're also going to face a big sort of water availability crisis.
So just to be clear, there are no other rivers to dam. There are not going to be more actual dams. So that energy has to come from wind or solar or microhydro or something like different.
I have no idea where they're going to get that energy, honestly. It's a ridiculous amount of energy that they would need. I cannot conceive of where they could possibly get that energy.
But they're planning a huge new transmission line from Prince George out to Kitimat, something like that?
Yes, they are.
$6 billion of public cost?
The North Coast Transmission Line, yeah. Yeah, the North Coast Transmission Line is a proposed new transmission line that would help to provide electrical power to projects like the Red Chris mine, which was just announced on the sort of list of...
That's a copper mine?
Yeah, nationally significant projects, and to the Slism's LNG export terminal, which was also just added last Thursday to the list of nationally significant projects.
You said Slism's. We're all learning how to pronounce this. I think it's KSI and LISMs, right?
Yeah.
And it's a Nisga'a First Nation sponsored project?
Yes, it's a project that's mostly owned by Western LNG, but which is in partnership with the Nisga'a Nation.
Right.
Yeah.
And where do the other First Nations in that area stand around these big projects? We know they don't like the oil pipeline, Trans-Canada, but where do they stand out on the gas stuff?
There are a lot of concerns about the project. That area where the terminal would go on Pierce Island and in the surrounding area is very culturally significant. There's huge salmon runs in that area. It's extremely important to a number of different nations, and there's been there are multiple court cases ongoing right now challenging that project and the associated Prince Rupert gas transmission pipeline that would need to feed it.
So are the First Nations split? Some favoring it and some opposed?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of concern around different aspects of the project from First Nations, and I think that there are concerns about sort of the availability of economic options for that area, right? Yeah.
But Haida Gwaii is also northwest.
Yes.
They've got now, because of the amazing treaty they completed recently, full control, the Haida Gwaii First Nations, full control of Guayhanas, right?
Yeah.
And they're doing a lot with ecotourism. People are going to see the beauty of the area. And the northwest is similarly beautiful.
Yeah.
It's not that much further up the coast.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think the free, prior, and informed consent aspect of this project is a big part of what those lawsuits are based on. That, under the Declaration on the Right to
So
Indigenous...
I'm going to slow you down. Free, prior, and informed consent.
Absolutely.
And not just showing up at a public meeting and, we talk to them, tick on the box and then take it away, right?
Yeah.
Free, prior, informed. So actually people saying, the First Nations saying, yes, we agree, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, which BC brought in, I think that people expected that free, prior, and informed consent was going to be one of the cornerstones of that act. And so I think that is one of the reasons why there has been huge issues with some of the industrialization projects that have been proposed for that area, because it has not been in keeping with the understanding of what that act was going to bring in.
And I think this is beyond my pay grade for this show, but there's the elected First Nations chiefs and the elders and the people. So there's a lot of politics going on in there.
Yeah, and every community is a little bit different, and I'm not Indigenous, and I don't want to speak for any of them, but it is hugely complex, and I think I'm pleased that they are exercising their sovereignty and self-determination through these court cases to advocate for the issues that are most important to them.
But meanwhile, it seems as if through the Elbows Up Canada thing, these projects they want to accelerate, the LNG is being accelerated. And was the transmission pipeline, transition electric line, was that in one of the accelerated projects too in BC?
The North Coast Transmission Line, yeah, and I think it's a real missed opportunity, this kind of elbows up, like the way that BC has interpreted that, because I think that it suggested that it might be a good idea for Canada to think about like our energy security and our energy sovereignty, and I agree with that. But I think that like opening the relationship to trade with other markets in Asia is actually not the direction that we should be going in. I think that there's a made in BC strategy that is more innovative, creates more projects, and creates more long-term economic prosperity.
We just got 4 minutes left, so I want to wrap this up. Like, if natural gas was like honey, we'd be not complaining about this. We'd have no problem in exporting honey. Well, maybe the bees union would have a problem with the bees being exploited. It's because it's contributing to the climate crisis.
Absolutely.
When you tune in as a young person to the climate crisis, what goes through your heart and through your mind?
Yeah, I'm hugely concerned about, what I'm leaving behind. I think I've always been someone who had a really strong sense of justice, and I have been doing, social justice work for a really long time because I want to leave this world better than I found it. And I find that, extractive industries and their contributions to the climate crisis are one of the biggest barriers to doing that, where emissions continue to go up. And we know all the things already that we need to do to bring them down, and governments are really failing to act on them. And that's why I'm here doing this work, because I feel a really strong need to hold government and industry accountable for actually making the tough decisions that are going to bring our emissions down.
So what are your fears if the world as a whole ceases? We're not making progress.
Yeah. We're
still heading towards a 2.6 degree temperature increase.
Yeah.
And the current 1.5 is giving us these massive storms and floods and heat waves and God. What goes through your heart?
Yeah,
really
I think
tune into this?
I think my fear and my hope are kind of like two different sides of the
Right.
same coin, right? Where my fear is that people will think that this is inevitable and
Yeah.
they will stop fighting.
Yeah.
And my hope is that people will realize that actually we all have the power to create change and we all have a role in this fight, and that we need to come together to figure out how to do that.
Right. I was just to wrap up. I caught an interview with the New Zealand past Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern
Yeah.
on the CNN the other night,
Yeah.
and she was talking about Shackleton, the Antarctic explorer who kept
Yeah.
his men alive through 2 long winters.
Yeah.
And he had a saying that hope is determined moral justice, or something like, it's a phrase of that kind of welfare.
Yeah.
So, say we continue to be hopeful because we're just determined.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't have hope, we're giving up, and then
Yeah. I don't think I would be able to get up every day and do what I do if I didn't have some sort of hope.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that no one can take away from you, right?
Yeah.
Like, it can get harder and it can get more complicated, but I think hope is the thing that drives you to come up with new ideas, to try and find new solutions.
One of the metaphors I use, say you're watching the Canucks playing and they're 4 down in the final period, whatever. if you're in the stands, you
Yeah.
can feel hopeless.
Sure.
But if you're a player on the ice,
Yeah,
you're either determined or you're defeated. And if you're
Right.
defeated, the coach is going to pull you.
sure.
So if you're a player,
Yeah.
there's really only one game in town. You're going to be determined, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not the best at sports metaphors, but I'm pretty sure I agree with you.
A lot of other people in British Columbia love their sports metaphors.
100%, yeah.
Well, look,
absolutely.
Kiki, this has been fabulous talking with you, learning.
Yeah,
I hope
likewise.
we've shared some understanding of what this thing called liquefied natural gas is. My name is Guy Dauncey. This has been the show Change the World. And if you enjoy this kind of discussion, tune in next week for different guest, different topic, more fun and laughter, and hopefully some insights. Many thanks for watching. Bye-bye.